Hello and welcome to ThePrint. I am Aamaan, and in our great speeches series today, we turn to an address by Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru in the Lok Sabha on 10th May 1954. The speech came during a parliamentary debate on atomic energy, at a moment when the global nuclear order was still taking shape. The United States and the Soviet Union dominated the field, and the proposals for international control were being actively discussed. For India, barely 7 years after independence, the question was not just about weapons, but about how a new nation would access and use a powerful new source of energy. So, why revisit this speech now? This week, Parliament approved the Shanti or Sustainable Harnessing and Advancement of Nuclear Energy for Transformation India Bill 2025, opening India's civil nuclear power sector to private companies for the first time. In 1954, Nehru began by responding to calls inside Parliament for banning nuclear weapons. He cautioned against assuming that moral sentiment alone could produce such an outcome, especially in a world divided by mistrust among major powers. He said, "It is not quite clear to me how our sentiments or a strong speech in this House will lead to such a ban. Neither of them is going to control the nuclear bomb till he is certain that the other will control it." End quote. From there, Nehru moved to a distinction that mattered deeply to countries like India: the difference between nuclear weapons and atomic energy used for development. He told the House, "The use of atomic energy for peaceful purposes is far more important for a country like India, whose power resources are limited, than for a country like France, an industrially advanced country. It is not so indispensable for them as for a power-starved or power-hungry country like India." End quote. This concern shaped Nehru's skepticism toward international control proposals then being discussed, particularly those associated with US President Dwight Eisenhower. Nehru pointed out that even the United Nations, which was often invoked as the natural authority for such control, did not include all major powers. He then laid out what the American proposal actually involved. He said, "An international control agency shall be set up by the United Nations. It shall thereafter be an independent body. It shall own and control the raw minerals mined, the plants in which the ore is processed, and all plants which deal with production of atomic energy wherever they may be situated in any country of the world." End quote. For Nehru, this raised a basic institutional question: who would wield the authority and in whose interest? He warned the House, "This vast power is proposed to be given to a body which is independent even of the United Nations. Either you make the body as big as the United Nations with all the countries represented, or it will be some relatively small body, inevitably with the great powers sitting in it and lording it over all the atomic energy areas and raw materials in every country." End quote. Nehru was clear that India was not rejecting cooperation, but he drew a line between shared restraint and unequal control. He said, "We are prepared even to limit, in common with other countries, our independence of action for the common good of the world, provided we are assured that it is for the common good of the world and not exercised in a partial way, and not dominated over by certain countries, however good their motives." End quote. One proposal troubled him in particular: the idea that even uranium ores, what Eisenhower had described as normal uranium, would come under international authority. Nehru told Parliament, "I submitted would not be right to agree to any plan which hands over even our raw materials and mines to any external authority." End quote. He returned repeatedly to the imbalance between developed and underdeveloped countries in such arrangements. As he put it, atomic energy for peaceful purposes is far more important to the underdeveloped countries of the world than to the developed ones. And if the developed countries have all the powers, they may well stop the use of atomic energy everywhere, because they do not need it so much, and in the consequence, we might suffer." End quote. To underline why energy access mattered, Nehru also addressed concerns about India's conventional fuels resources. Drawing on geological assessments, he argued that India's coal reserves were far from exhausted. He said, "We have reserves of 2,000 million tons of high grade and coking coal which should last for a period of about 650 years." End quote. Toward the end of his speech, Nehru turned to India's handling of monazite sands, a key source of thorium. Earlier exports of raw sands had been curtailed and the emphasis had shifted to domestic processing. He explained, "We now supply the processed material. We have put up a factory in Travancore, Cochin for processing the material, and it is much more advantageous for us to supply the processed material than the sands. We are also putting up a factory at Trombay near Bombay." End quote. 70 years later, India is again reworking the institutional framework of its nuclear sector. This time, by allowing private participation in civil nuclear power. But the core questions Nehru raised in 1954 about control, access, sovereignty, and the role of energy in national development continue to frame how nuclear power is debated in India today. Thank you for joining us on Great Speeches. For more from The Print, do subscribe at theprint.in/subscribe. I am Aamaan in Delhi.